Hello and welcome back to Read Becca. Continuing on with the mini lists of the beginning of the year, this is going to be my 2022 library TBR. So I had been calling this my Goodreads TBR, really was just a Goodreads shelf, and that's why I was calling it that. So this is unowned book. I have owned and an unowned books TBR. And last year was the first year I did that, and once we get through all of these lists and onto my reflections from the last year, you will see that I felt worked really well for me. So I want to continue it on. So I'm replacing my goal of reading my Goodreads TBR and saying it's my library TBR. So what that means is I have selected 14 books, which I think is really doable considering how much I read. And I'm not necessarily planning to get through all of these. I think I could in this case, and that would be fun to see. But I just treat this as a pile of potential that I can select from of things I'm really excited about. And really interesting, I kind of started forming the list and didn't really go through the details of what each book was. And when I went back and looked and had pared it all down, I think only 3 of these were really newer to me picks or even really new releases. All of the rest of them had been on my to-read list since 2017 to 2019, in that range. So I think that's because I have been very active in BookTube watching since then, and that was when I was getting a load of new books coming in. And so there's a lot of interesting picks on here. None of them are really a lot older, so I don't have any classics or anything, but I have grouped these into categories, much like I did with my physical TBR. So let's get into the books. Again, if you missed the physical TBR, I will link that list down below. And I hope you're excited about these books. Let me know what you want me to get to first. So we are starting off with some Gothic Ladies, continuing on from my project on my physical TBR shelf. These ones, because mainly they're about atmosphere, I am going to try to go in kind of blind and not read the synopsis for these. So I'm not going to give any summary. These are all about vibes. First one is The Wicked Cometh by Laura Carlin. Wakenhurst by Michelle Paver. The Muse by Jessie Burton. The Foundling by Stacey Halls. Next, we have Weird Stuff. This is Extreme Makeover by Dan Wells. Dan Wells is probably most famous for I Am Not a Serial Killer, which was adapted to a great film starring Christopher Lloyd. And he's often compared to David Wong, who also writes very bizarro sci-fi. And this one, I believe, is about hand lotion that starts replacing people's DNA and turning them into clones of another person. Next is Old Drift by Namwali Serpel. This is a Zambian set novel with historical fantasy, sci-fi, and told through the lens of a chorus voice that I believe is a swarm of mosquitoes. Next we have The Archive of Alternate Endings by Lindsey Drager. This is, I believe, experimental, and it follows the story of Hansel and Gretel at 75-year increments over time, seeing how it could evolve or has evolved over time, starting from the Brothers Grimm and going all the way into the future, I believe. The Beauty by Alia Whiteley is fungal weirdness. This is set in a future where women have all died and the men tell folk tales of them until a boy stumbles across where the women's bodies are buried and it's full of mushrooms. So I don't know if you can see the blurb on the cover, but it says, "A story of cosmic fecundity and fungal weirdness that I couldn't put down." And if that doesn't sell you on this book, I don't know what will. Appleseed by Matt Bell is probably the newest novel on my list. It just came out within the past year, and this one has been compared often to Jeff Vandermeer, so that is definitely in my vein of sci-fi weirdness. This one, much like Old Drift, takes part in multiple timelines in the past, the near future, and the far future, and incorporates climate and corporatism and weirdness. Now we've got a couple of mystery thriller types, and I completely misjudged Simone St. James. For some reason I saw their books and thought that I was looking at that kind of sad historical fiction for middle-aged women, and so this is me correcting that, because when I heard about this novel's plot finally, it sounded exactly like my sort of thing. So the Sundown Motel, I believe, is a potentially haunted motel. There's kind of a missing persons or murder mystery plot. That sounds absolutely great to me. My other mystery thriller is Jane Steele by Lindsey Faye. This one has been of great interest to me because it's a Jane Eyre retelling, or Jane Eyre inspired at least, but Jane is a serial killer. And the final grouping is going to be nonfiction. So the first option here is The Collected Schizophrenias by Esme Weijin Wang, and I think that this is just going to be, as it says, a collection of essays all about Esme's experience with mental health, and from a very close personal perspective. The Uninhabitable Earth, Life After Warming by David Wallace Wells was quite popular all over BookTube a couple years ago, and I've wanted to read it ever since and just haven't gotten to picking it up. Seems like a nice light read about the depressing realities of climate change. And we've made it to the last one on the list, The Zoologist's Guide to the Galaxy. What Animals on Earth Reveal About Aliens and Ourselves by Dr. Eric Kirschenbaum. This one is one of my other newish releases. I think this came out within the past year, and very excited about this. I love when scientists take the topic of animal minds and think of them as something really akin to alien to us. So that is it for my list of library TBR. Thank you so much for watching.